again, Mr. Abrahams, thank you very much for your time. So what's the ideal national minimum wage, in your view?
It is very difficult to determine exactly where the wage should be set, because there are just such a complex number of factors. What we can say, though, from the research we have done at local levels around Pietermaritzburg, but also around the rest of the province, is that households of 7 persons, which is by and large what we would get in a lower income household, number of persons, would require plus minus around 7,000 rand per month to live at a very basic level. However, that might not be possible to implement immediately. And so we have asked, when the national minimum wage was instituted, that it be set at a level that will not continue a poverty wage trajectory. Because when you look at the number of persons depending on one wage, which is plus minus 4 people, and when you look at a wage of 3,500 dispersed amongst 4 people, you get less than the 1,227 rand, which is the upper poverty level. So we are appealing that when the national minimum wage is reviewed next year, that it be significantly increased.
Mr. Abrahams, some companies are already complaining, though, that they are unable to afford this, and some are even discussing whether or not it should actually be taken off the table.
Yes, we are very aware of that debate, and it's an important debate. Hence, we have said that we have, in South Africa, we have a very strong, good institution called NEDLAC, where trade unions, employers, the state, and in some instances civil society meets. And we believe that under review, we shouldn't just look at wage per company, but we should look at the entire economy and our economic policies. And the reason why we're saying this is for this reason, that wages is important, of course, between companies and workers, and companies have to survive. We don't want one more company closing in South Africa. However, we also have to stimulate demand in the economy. And the way to stimulate demand in the economy, which could possibly lead to more job creation in the future, is actually for people to have more money in their pockets so that they can actually spend. The only reason why our economy is not growing is because there is not demand for greater growth in the economy. And in fact, demand is stifled. And one of the reasons why demand is stifled is our low wage trajectory in the country. No foreign investor will invest to build a factory in South Africa if their goods or services cannot be bought on the local market. And that requires a greater stimulus in wages and in social grants. Of course, at the NEDLAC conversation, it would have to be raised also how the tax burden on employers might be eased in order to help facilitate an increase in the national minimum wage.
Are you following closely the affordability test for those companies that claim they are unable to afford this? I know, for example, the one industry that really was crying was the agriculture sector. Are you following these closely? And in your view, are these people genuinely unable to afford this 3,500 rands a month?
The agricultural sector is not a uniform sector. I mean, in the sense that it depends on what produce you produce. And it depends on what agricultural produce you sell on the South African market and what you sell on the overseas market. A lot of our agriculture is, in fact, being exported. And being exported does bring in very good revenues. So it depends really from farmer to farmer what the situation is. However, what we can see just from our personal reflection, if I walk into a store, and a retail store, and I look at a tin of tomatoes, for instance. The tin of tomatoes from Italy is much cheaper than the tin of tomatoes that is being produced in South Africa. So what do I buy? What do lower income people buy? We buy the Italian tomatoes. Why do we buy the Italian tomatoes? Because we do not have enough money in our pockets to buy the South African tomatoes. And of course that impacts on our local industry. Therefore we are saying that the problem in South Africa is that there is not sufficient demand. There is not sufficient demand because there is not sufficient money in people's pockets. The question, therefore, is how do we ensure that to happen in a way that does not destroy industry? And we believe that that is a discussion we still need to have.
All right. Thank you very much for your inputs there. That's Mr. Mervyn Abrahams, and he is the program coordinator.